Welcome to Engage with Emily, a LinkedIn Live series where we learn together with industry experts. Today's topic is building unbreakable bonds and focuses on the 6 strategies to create relationships that will grow over time. I'm your host, Emily Green, founder and CEO of Emily Green LLC, a consulting firm that focuses on public relations, business development, and public speaking services. So let's stay connected after the show. Please follow me on LinkedIn and check out my website, emilygreen.com. Joining me today is Tina Ruark-Baker, founder and growth consultant of TRB Creative. Tina specializes in elevating brands by creating customized growth strategies for entrepreneurs, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations. With over 2 decades immersed in the dynamic corporate world of sales, client excellence, and marketing across diverse industries, Tina has honed her expertise to deliver transformative solutions for her clients. Her passion is to empower businesses to thrive. Tina actively serves on nonprofit boards and committees in Charlotte and is also an abstract artist, which is so cool, and has a love for golf. So you can learn more about her on trbcreative.com. Thank you, Tina, for leading our LinkedIn Live today and sharing your industry knowledge. I am excited to jump into learning with you and everyone else who's going to be watching this. Before we get into our 6 main focuses of building unbreakable bonds, can you share why this topic is so important to you and really should be for every leader?
Yeah, good morning, and thanks for having me on this snowy day in Charlotte. So my strategy for kind of like thoughts around what's important is our tribe, right? And as a salesperson of way too many years and a leader of groups and teams for motivating growth businesses in multiple industries, the bonds that we have through our networks are exactly the launch boards to us being successful, right? So my strategy over the last, I would say, couple of years has really been more of a mantra of just, I can do better, we can do better. How do we get our heads wrapped around that? And most people that I call are in my tribe would describe me, because I asked them, would describe me as a giver, meaning I'm always going, little things that I would do for people. And I think I get it from my father, I call him Pops. He would do the same. He would try to find one person every day to just, someone crossed his path, try to make their day a little bit better. And it kind of starts, you remember the days, I think I still do it, but I don't know if many people do, buying a Starbucks for somebody behind you, like all of those little things of paying it forward. But he would always try to make every person that crossed his path feel special in some way. And he became this, in the Detroit metro area, he became known for that. Like, Dennis is here, like it just became a thing. So I try to really focus on being a leader that can inspire, and it could be someone that you don't know. Like yesterday I was at Costco and I let this gentleman who was elderly that had one thing go in front of me, and I just made his day, right? He's like, that's never happened, I do it all the time. So it's little things like that, and it's just a really great way to practice and put it into your life, because I feel like if you're giving space for growth, it happens. That's one of the things I hired a coach actually to get my headspace correct for leaving corporate to starting my own business, which is a big shift for us big girls who have been doing it for 20 plus years. And one of the things that she kept yelling at the top of her lungs at me was, give yourself the space to grow. And that kind of goes into that mantra of just trying to do better, trying to be better for other people. But I quickly realized that in my network of 10 to 20 people, when I decided to do the step into owning my own business again, and when I say again, I was 18 when I owned my first business and sold it to a .com. So it'd been a hot minute since I had kind of stepped into those waters again. But I was really surprised when I reached out to my old network in New York that people picked up the phone. I still had the same number. They knew it was me. There was no hesitation. And that's an unbreakable bond. That is where, you know what, it's been 10 years since I've talked to you, but how are you? What is happening with you? And it just took off. It never was like a day passed. So that's the kind of reminder for myself that if you do well for others, it always is there and that bond is always there.
I love that. That's a very, giving spirit that I feel like we all need to do more of. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. And I feel like we have the same heart-centered approach with a lot of the things that we do, and it does. It comes back to really help you and creates those bonds that you just can't break.
Yeah,
That's what we all
agreed.
want. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and jump into the 6 focuses of how to create these unbreakable
Sure.
bonds. And the first that, I won't want to say any of them are more important than the rest, but I think without this one, like the rest can't happen. So our first one is the power of trust. How do you cultivate, protect, and rebuild trust when it's broken? So why don't you go ahead and jump into that and let us know
Yeah.
what you
Yeah. So trust is an interesting thing. For me, it's a two-way street, right? You have people that you know, love, and trust. They're in your world. But to build a relationship based off of trust, it has to have a foundation. So you have a dance, you're dancing together, you're learning each other, you're learning each other's businesses. But when you give back to that relationship where you're leaning in with your openness and your basically what they're coming to you for, that's where the trust blocks start to build, right? So, and I'll give this quick little story. 20 plus years of being in the staffing business. And when I say staffing business, I was selling to C-suite, senior VPs and up, right? So you're building relationships with these individuals because they have a need. They need to hire someone, right? But then you'll get that unique call where they're like, hey, I might be looking, or can you tell me a little bit more about this position that I saw? I heard so-and-so's hiring a CEO, whatever the position is. And that shows that's a trust factor, right? So they're trusting me with the fact that they're possibly looking. I have to be Vegas. I am not allowed to talk about it. That is locked, sacred information.
Yeah.
Why? Because wherever that person goes, it's my reputation, number one. Number two, if I spoke, that got through the grapevine, because you know how the shifts work in the C-suite. Once one person
Mhm.
moves in, it's a shuffle. If that person is known that they're looking, they could be exited for some odd reason. It could start to crumble around them, and now that's affecting families, right? So when I say Vegas, even when I'm working with my coaches and my consulting clients, I am not there to look good. I'm there to make them look good. So if I'm that secret weapon behind the curtain, I want to make sure that I am 100% loyal to their goals and where they're going. That's the trust factor, right? But as for now, like when I fast forward to today's date, coming out of corporate, and now I'm doing what I'm doing now, again, it's not about me. It's about helping other people, listening to their issues, their problems, and their goals, and trying to be a solution person. That's where they're going to call you for your experience and lean on you. So I kind of have 3 rules that I try to live by, or guides, I guess. I don't know if I'd call them rules. But the first one is being very transparent and being very consistent. So listening is really hard to do, especially when you're all about the solution and you're all about the ideas to help. But listening, communicating, really opening up to, these are some thoughts. What do you think? Owning mistakes, that's so key critical. And then the other side is, providing timelines. Like, I'm not going to commit to supporting you, consultant, without a timeline. Like, we're going to work together for the next 3 months, and this is kind of our goals that we're going to do. Do you agree? Did I hear you correctly?
Mhm.
Like, asking all of those questions, just being very transparent. Protecting the trust, it's your relationship, it's your reputation. So that I protect at all means, and it's really more about just, again, listening and understanding what they're going through. And it could be very large strategic stuff, and it could be really small, like, this is my small goal for the next quarter, and just kind of coming up with the solutions for that. And then my last comment on that, I guess, is the rebuilding. is really owning the oopses. And
Mhm.
it may not even be your oops, right? It could be their oops, but understanding what happened. Going up and above and beyond to make sure that we're righting the situation or at least coming up with some solutions for them. That, again, shows vulnerability. It shows that you have heard them, and it shows that you're all on their team and you're willing to do the trust factor for them.
Those are all amazing things for people to take to heart and really, really just start implementing if you're not already doing. So
Yeah.
thank you so much
Yeah.
for sharing those. And one of the things that I've talked about in the past in other like presentations and speaking things that I've done was first impressions. And believe it or not, you can break trust from the very beginning by making like a really bad first impression. And there was a Harvard study that said once you break that trust or make that bad impression on someone, it can take 8 times.
Yes.
8 times to fix it.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was so interesting. So it's a lot harder to repair it than it is to, get it. So, all
Agreed.
right. Next on our list of focuses is being vulnerable. So, being vulnerable really does help build strong connections. It's really about opening up, understanding that there are some limitations. You don't want to be that oversharer that everyone kind of cringes because they're like, "Oh gosh, they're going to share too much." But it can create loyalty and that emotional connection. So, how do we, strategically be vulnerable? Is that even possible? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, anything's possible. And it's really just more of being comfortable in your own
Yeah.
skin. And so many people look at this topic as being weak or being less than.
Yes.
And it's completely the opposite. And another thing that I learned from Pops was, unless you admit that you don't know, people aren't going to know that. And you can't build a team conversation or collaborative, chatting about whatever the topic is. So I always like to come in with a different way of kind of something that's going to breed loyalty. And it's really one of my favorite lines to use, especially when I'm getting to know a new client or I'm getting to know someone. I used it yesterday. I met a board member of mine or a committee member of mine that I had not met face to face. And when we started to kind of chit-chat about her ideas and what she would love to see happen, I said, walk me through this literally like I'm 4 years old. And it just lowers their shoulders. It's a little humor, but it let her know, like, I'm listening. I'm here. I want to be with you through this icky space that we're in. And it really wasn't a you and her and I space. It was a committee space on how do we be better at what we're doing? How do we leave the egos behind and really focus on what the core is, right? So I love to use that line because it just lets people know that you're not coming in as this, high-level professional. Excuse me. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
All of a sudden I got a cough. You really want to be a true partner for them.
Mm-hmm. Do you need some water? Coffee?
I knew this was going to happen. You go through this allergy season,
Yeah.
and it just attacks. So sorry about that, guys. One of the other things I wanted to touch on with this is I had the pleasure of leading a group. I don't know if you've ever heard of this or if anyone has. It's a lean-in circle. And this is a group, they're all different types of titles, different types of topics, but it's a group of women, usually between 8 and 12, executives that meet virtually, and we support each other, talk about whatever's happening in our lives and businesses, and it could be on a lot of different topics. But I happen to decide to raise my hand through NC Tech here in Charlotte, and mine was called She Can, and it was all about women empowerment and how can we support. Well, this group, I have to tell you, this is, again, showing your underbelly, being vulnerable to situations, is we all know that things are recorded. And the number one most important thing for me was to make sure that they knew that this event that we do every month is not recorded. And there was a reason for that. 3 of them were looking to leave their corporate jobs and go on to starting up their own business. Very critical, huge step in life. Kids in college, all the things are happening for each one of them. Another was looking to go for an advancement, which meant overstepping current boss. That can't be recorded, right?
Yeah.
So there was a very, very kind of building trust with these women fast. And how am I going to do that? How are we going to do kind of strategic conversations in the 35 minutes that we would meet once a month? I let them drive the ship. Every month at the end of the meeting, I said, what do we want to talk about next month? Shoot me any comments or thoughts that you have. I'm here to support. So I became a facilitator. I wasn't the leader of, right? And that showed vulnerability. We built a great trust, and we still keep in contact to this day. It's been a year and a half later, and we still support each other. We're still giving each other business and clients. So I guess the key factors, if I were to just kind of sum up, were be really self-aware, be honest about where you shine and where you might not, and how you can maybe work with that person to better the relationship between both of you. Take the first step, lead with courage, start off small, do little things, admit where you may need some help, and ask. And then the third is the empathy, really meeting others where they are in their creative space, or create a space rather, to have active listening and really understand where they might be in their situation.
Yeah, that's all great. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
And I think again, you have such great experience, and I think the vulnerability thing is easier in smaller groups too. So I think
It
that's
is.
something
It is.
to think about, because sometimes I think it's a little bit, I don't know, daunting when you're in a very big group. Um, but yeah, thank you for sharing that. So that kind of leads nicely into the next focus that we had, which was quality over quantity.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that, because again, when you're talking about like a smaller group, then that's more of that quality over quantity. And I think a lot of times we think, oh well, I need to join every single thing, I need to be part of every single networking invite event. But sometimes the best connections, the best relationships are when you focus on less, not more.
Yeah, and this goes back to my staffing days too, because back in the day, you'd have a job rec or an opening, and people would send 50 resumes, and the client's like, listen, this isn't what I want. Like, you send me your top 2, right? So again, quality over quantity. But I think when you look at it differently, I think one of the best quality kind of tips I can share that in my experience is to being fully present in the moment when you're with someone. And again, we're talking about building trust, unbreakable bonds, but I don't need to come in super powerful. It doesn't usually work, right? So it's being more quiet, being present, understanding. Everybody has lives, everybody has drama, but when it comes to the clients, they're really seeking your guidance and your expertise. So a quick, whether in this I jokingly say, whether it's a cup of coffee meeting or if it's a high stakes pitch that you're doing, just be present in that moment and be present for them. And then when you kind of start going through the action plan of what does that mean, and I'll give an example on a marketing perspective, you could send out 500 blind cold called emails, or craft 30 personalized messages that really generate a response. That's building your brand awareness, right? So that's really focusing on cultivating the quality versus just throwing it out and hoping that something sticks. A lot of people feel like they have to post every day if they're trying to build up their brand. It's really not about how much, it's about what you're posting. And are people getting something genuinely out of it for them? Are they learning anything? Are they able to get a couple of quick tips? Or, oh yeah, I forgot I was supposed to do that. That started on LinkedIn, or whatever it happens to be. Every moment, every interaction truly becomes an opportunity to strengthen relationships, share successes, and really make a difference for someone. So
Hmm.
when you're really looking at, quality versus quantity, just keep that in mind, that it's not so much about the volume, it's about the true connection.
That's extremely helpful. And I think for myself, even that's been something that I've really been more intentional about, making sure that I am only saying yes, or only putting my attention and my energy into, you know, building those connections and working on those events that really make sense for what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And that's where kind of boundaries and balance come into place too. And that's number 4, what we're going to talk about. So creating healthy boundaries for unbreakable relationships, but also you want to make sure, and I know my camera is turned off. I apologize, guys. I'm having some major tech issues. I'm going to blame the weather. But I can't get it to turn back on. So we're just going to look at Tina. You look amazing.
I'm
Um,
here.
but I'm here. I am here. And we're still we're sharing some awesome stuff. So, um, but boundaries and balance is something that I talk about constantly. I have so many speaking things that I've done on that, and they're in a lot of the things I'm talking about, even later this month and next month, because it's something you're always going to be working on. I don't think balance ever is possible, like true balance. So it's something that you're just, in my opinion, always going to have to focus on and always work on. But how do you create boundaries but still stay close to people? How do you do that and have them, think you're accessible enough that they can refer other people to you? So how do you do that?
So for me personally, and career has always been number one. My hubby and I, we don't have kiddos. We travel a lot. We golf a lot. We have all the things that we love in life. But having a balance between work and personal time was a challenge. And I've, carried the senior VP role where I had teams under me and you were working Saturdays and Sundays to get ready for the week. I got burnt out, to be honest. I mean, there's only so
Mm-hmm.
much you can take within a lifespan. And I think COVID was a big shift for a lot of people to creating balance for themselves, because we realized we didn't have to be in the cubicle. We didn't have to physically be in the room to make things happen, which is the whole reason why I really stepped into my own world of doing consulting right now. But it's tricky. So it was actually one of my challenges. Funny story. Challenge for Q4 of 2024 into 2025. And it was all about, I want to work smarter. I don't want to necessarily work harder. I want to keep the same income coming in. How do I do that? And
Yeah.
I jumped into this with both feet. And it was really challenging to be able to set boundaries for friends. We kind of quit drinking, we quit going out, we wanted to be alert and really push through the last quarter of the year and get set for 2025, because I didn't want to fail, right? That was the big piece for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then my coach told me, and I also am a huge fan of Mel Robbins, and she's like, you've got to get the book, and it literally just got delivered yesterday. It's behind me here. It's the let them theory. And I've seen many of her videos and a lot of things that Mel talks about when coaching people for this. But it's giving the space to just let them, right? Let them whatever. You're good. Like, you don't have to try to manhandle, none of it. Just like let them do what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that reflected into business for me. So some of the actions that I thought were interesting, creating clear expectations by communicating those timelines, right? That's really critical. Like, I'm going to give you so much time per month. This is your time to shine. Let's figure out what we can do within this hour and make it powerful. That's creating, don't text me at 6 o'clock, because this is our time, right? Not being responsive when someone does reach out or someone books time on your calendar that doesn't really fit in. Like, all of the things that happen when you're running your own business, or even when you're working for corp and you're managing clients, setting those expectations, right? Not feeling guilty if you say no. And this is hard because a lot of us that are givers or pleasers for that matter, trying to help as many people as we can, it can take a lot. There can be a lot of ask if you're supporting, a nonprofit. There can be a lot of asks if you have a hobby that people are kind of like, well, could you create? Could you do this? Could you help us, expand this event or whatever's happening? It's okay to say no. I mean, I've walked away from projects this year already that I knew were not a fit. Is it money? Yes. Is it opportunity? Yes. Is it the people that I want in my tribe? It wasn't. And it's a reflection, right? You've got to really kind of make sure that you're keeping your standards and your loyalty to yourself first and foremost. And then the other thing I would mention is creating flexibility that works for you. Clients should be totally comfortable with coming to you with a question or, oh my God, I've got this happening tomorrow, I need your help. They should be coming to you for that because that's, you're the expertise in whatever your topic is. And if you give into, I'll make myself available to you, that's a slippery slope. But still giving them time restrictions and still giving them a commitment of a deliverable that you can support on your timeline is critical. It is an everyday practice. I kid you not. And I find it even myself, like, I want to give myself time to go to the grocery store or whatever. I stick to it because I could stay focused on working with this client for another hour. But I'm like, nope, I made a commitment. I'm going to go do this afternoon or whatever it is. And I have to hold myself accountable too. So I don't know if that's helpful, but those are 3 little secrets that I do on a daily to kind of keep my boundaries with my clients and my personal relationships.
Thank you. That is incredibly helpful because I think boundaries are something, especially when I feel like when you're first starting out in really any position, not even just as like an owner of a business, but I know for me when I started my agency, especially, I was terrible about setting boundaries because I was
Yeah, it's
terrified.
hard.
Yeah, I was terrified if I didn't take the call, if I wasn't always available, if
Yeah.
I didn't jump every time there was an issue, that I would lose that client and I would mess that relationship up.
And
And
there's a lot of guilt there too, right? So
yeah,
like, let's say you have a team, and if you're not really doing everything you can to bring in business for the company overall, that means people are getting paid on your team. That's a lot of guilt. It's
mhm.
hard to navigate.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Let's move on to navigating conflict. So I laugh because conflict, you tend to think of it as a bad thing, but I actually think conflict, just like rejection and some of the other things that tend to be looked at as negative, can actually be a positive. So how do we turn challenges like conflict with people? You're going to have that no matter who you work with, no matter how much you like each other. Even
Right.
best friends you're going to have conflict with. How do you turn that into opportunities for growth?
Yeah, so I think conflict is, I embrace it. I learn from it. I run head to head to it sometimes if it's like my brother, for instance, like, come on, like, it is what it is, right? But conflict for me is kind of like a really overly honest friend who's brutally honest, completely uncomfortable sometimes, but ultimately the heart is good. We just got to figure out how to work it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
conflict for me, and I think about like people that I worked with in the past that, commission-driven salespeople were all A personalities, like all of those things. You're constantly like a referee. You're managing all of the drama that goes to business. But when you approach it with care, and I love to say sprinkle a little humor on it, you take the awkward moments and turn them into opportunities. And it's really offering small solutions. Let's take a break. Let's take a breath. Let's think about one thing that we can positively change in the situation we're in right now. But conflict overall, when you look at it, it truly leads to growth because I was trained from a mentor who was amazing in New York City, and she would always say to me at the end of the day, what could you have done better today? It could have been anything, but it was always the way she looked at it, of like pushing me out of a comfort zone of the day-to-day grind and saying, who could I have helped better today than I did yesterday, right? So that was kind of another mantra that I still to this day, when my head hits the pillow, did I help someone? Did I do something for someone? And I just keep paying that forward. But then you also have to do that for yourself, right?
Yeah.
So shifting a mindset, one of the things I love to do is I like to shift the mindset, and I take the problem, whatever it is, and I think of it as being on an expressway and there's a roadblock, right? How do we find a way around it? We're all in this vehicle. We're a team together. What can we learn from it? How can we make a better situation? And the answer for me is always staying curious, like asking questions, like, literally, can you help me understand a little bit of this process? Like, educate me on where we're at. Why do you think this decision mattered? Those open-ended questions creates conversation, and it kind of takes the shoulders down again, but it also shows them that you care and that you're listening, and that is going to fuel change. So really focusing on the issue of the problem, not the person who is standing behind the problem or presenting the problem sometimes. That can be interesting. But really focusing on solution and team is really critical. I, again, am a big fan of owning your mistakes and showing empathy. So I love to ask questions like, or even statements of, like, I see how this impacted you. Let's think about how we can do this differently, and opening up another conversation. But all in all, it's being collaborative, circling the wagon, supporting the team, turning conflict, learning from it, usually means we're putting in some sort of a change order, if you will, on how we're working together, and then you can probably get to a great kind of, opportunity for growth.
I love that. And we actually met at an event where I was talking about how to spin it to win it, how to turn a negative into a positive. So one of the things I talk about in that particular presentation is this acronym I came up with that I have used for my clients, and I try to honestly do for myself whenever I'm faced with conflict, because it happens, even if we're doing everything we should or we can, it still happens. But it stands for triggers, authenticity, bias, and sensitivity. So I always think about that. So if I'm in conflict with someone, is there something that's triggering me that may have caused me to do this, or something that's triggering them that could be causing them to have this reaction? Am I being authentic with how I'm responding, with how I am, coming to this situation? Are there any past things, any bias that might be creeping in? I just watched this amazing show on Apple TV called Disclaimer. Have you seen it? Have you watched it?
Yes.
And that show completely changed my viewpoint of, like, you can never assume that you know something. Never jump to conclusions based off of one side. And I feel like that's exactly what I'm trying to say with that part of the TABS acronym. Like, do not, before investigating the entire situation, don't assume anything. I have found that especially to be troubling when I have had issues with team members that I was managing in the past. It's really easy to just jump to the same conclusion, like, oh, they're doing this because of what this other team member did, without giving them the benefit of the doubt, without investigating it.
Right.
So always be that good detective. Don't let the past make you not really see the real picture. And then being sensitive, and that goes along with also what you talked about with vulnerability. Being sensitive doesn't mean you're weak. It's a strong character. It actually means that you are strong enough to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And be sensitive to what others are going through, because sometimes that conflict, sometimes the issue you're having in the relationship, they just need to be heard. They just need to understand that, you're recognizing what they're going through. Even if you say it back to them, sometimes I've had that dissolve a situation completely.
Yeah.
But if you do all of that and come up with a solution and a way to not have this happen again, if it is something that you did wrong, or maybe it's not even something you did wrong. It's just something that needs to be improved, with that client or team member. We've found, like when I was overseeing the agency, even with my clients now, it has actually made our relationships better. And that was shocking to me because sometimes I think we just automatically are like, conflict means the end of a relationship. It can make it actually stronger if you react in a positive way. But I think our reaction sometimes is what actually makes that conflict the bad thing.
And I think, and I just thought of another situation that happened this last year with a client that forgot to tell me something very important in this marketing plan. And we launched, and there was an oops, and it wasn't anything major, but I very easily could have taken the road of like, that was pretty important to know. Like, that was a very key critical thing that we should have known about. Instead, I took the road of, didn't realize, completely my fault, let's rebuild. And they, to this day, have never said, like, you know what, that was my bad. That was me.
Yeah.
But to their leadership team, I took the hit. And I was okay with it because I had a solution for it, which was fine. But that was another way of being, like, I hear you, I see you, we're going to pivot to be successful in this situation. And just having that solution piece is really critical. But, kind of laying on the sword, it does happen sometimes. And it's your call to do, but it can be very critical to build a long, trusting relationship with that client.
All right, well, our last focus is gratitude and appreciation. So how do you strengthen relationships and make an impact for others through showing that appreciation and gratitude?
So this is really, really critical, and it's a huge part of building relationships. And it's, just be honest, it's the fun part of it, right? So I have a goal every day, and I think I mentioned in the beginning, to pick one person in a day that I don't know to make some sort of a positive impression on. And it's a great way to practice this, but appreciation really creates a ripple effect for the people around them and the people of their clients, right? So it really strengthens the relationship overall. And when you're celebrating small wins, you can do it in a board meeting, you can do it over a Zoom call, however those small ones get, it could be an email, get celebrated. But writing a thank you, sending a thank you, specifically as to why. But the thing that I'm seeing a lot more of is they're recognizing people publicly on social media for their wins. And that could be, thanks for referring this book to me, life-changing. All of those little things that you do for others make a difference, and they are seen. So when you start thinking about, how do I want to build a relationship with this particular client, you don't want to be over the top where it's too much, but you want to make sure that you're doing something so that you're supporting their growth and their goals of growth, whatever those happen to be. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, if you're looking at, I always say, you have things that are very strong key indicators that you're building trust with someone. Gratitude and appreciation in a relationship are superchargers. And those literally can catapult greatly in a very fast pace. So, if you're looking to make an impact either on your personal or professional life, these are really some really great tools. And it's little things like, I still write thank you notes by hand and mail them. I have a drawer full of thank you notes. It's little things. I'll put one in the mailbox, like, hey, neighbor, thanks for checking in on me yesterday, or, good luck on your presentation today, whatever it is. But again, that's the giver, right? That's how Pops was, and I kind of, inherited that. But you're leaving impressions on people from a positive, whether it's professional or it's your personal life, you're still leaving, and a little goes a long way. It doesn't cost you anything. It's a great habit to have. It's just, being thankful for referrals, being thankful for introductions, all of those are opportunities. And I try to, for everyone I get, I try to do the same for those people. So just keep it in mind and in your back pocket, because that's the fun part about building relationships.
Yes, I totally agree, and I just love that you write
I
notes.
do.
I always keep them when I get those from people. It means so much. I have like a little box that I keep all of them.
Yeah, and I'm a bit of a I actually still do post-it notes for myself. Like I'll put reminders for myself of like today's your day to blah blah blah. Like it's just a way of writing it, I think, and seeing it and reading it. Whatever that positivity is, it makes a difference to making it happen faster.
Well, we covered so many great things today. So thank you, Tina, for
Thank
sharing all of
you.
these tips. How can everyone joining us today connect with you after the show?
Definitely through LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me a direct message. I also have a book an appointment link if you want to schedule time on my calendar to chat about it. I work a lot with coaches and consultants right now, as well as some of the nonprofit and corporate side. But just trying to support people, so you can do it through my website or through my LinkedIn.
Thank you. And I will put in the comments once this is completely posted on my page. I will include the link to everything there so you all can check that out. We're also going to be publishing a LinkedIn article with our top tips and some of the key moments from this live. So stay tuned for that, and I'll be posting it on my website as well. So lots of ways, if you weren't able to tune today, and maybe weren't able to see everything because of our technical difficulties, you'll still be able to get a lot of the great content and moments from this show. So I hope you all can join me next month when we will learn from special guest Kim Angeli. She will be teaching us all about grace, gratitude, and go-giving. So some of the things we kind of dipped a little bit into this time, but we'll be really focused on that. And that will be on Wednesday, February 19th, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern. So thank you again, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.